Dr. Zarix couldn't tear his compound eyes away from the vital signs monitor. According to every measurement his medical instruments could detect, the human diplomat lying on the examination table was clinically dead. Yet Ambassador Thomas Chen had assured him this was perfectly normal, even necessary. Fascinating, Zarix chittered, his antennae twitching in agitation. And you say this happens every solar cycle? Every night, Thomas confirmed through a yawn, settling onto the specially modified medical bed. We call it sleep. Without it, we die, the real kind of death, not the temporary kind. The Arxosian researcher had been studying human physiology for 3 standard cycles now, ever since Earth joined the Galactic Council. But this revelation about humans requiring periodic death states had sent shockwaves through the xenobiological community. The fact that humans willingly surrendered consciousness for nearly a third of their lives seemed like evolutionary suicide to most species. Beside him, his research partner Dr. Nyx-val flexed his crystalline appendages nervously. The selenite was still adapting to working with organic beings, but his expertise in consciousness studies made him invaluable to understanding this phenomenon. What troubles me most, Nyx-val hummed in his melodious voice, is what you call dreams. You say your consciousness fragments, creates false realities? Thomas smiled drowsily. That's one way to put it. Sometimes they're beautiful, sometimes terrifying, but they're always interesting. His eyes were growing heavy. Why don't you see for yourself? The ambassador's brainwave patterns began their telltale descent into delta waves. Zarix watched in horrified fascination as the human's consciousness seemingly switched off like a powered-down machine. Recording all metrics, he announced, trying to keep his mandibles from clicking anxiously. Nyx-val, are you ready with the consciousness probe? The crystalline alien adjusted the delicate sensors he had attached to Thomas's temples. Affirmative. Though I must admit, I find this deeply unsettling. In my species, a fractured consciousness is a sign of terminal decay. As they watched their instruments, something extraordinary began to happen. Rather than the expected void of unconsciousness, Thomas's mind erupted with activity, not the organized patterns of wakeful thought, but something wild and primordial. By the first light, Nyx-val whispered, his crystalline form resonating with excitement. Look at these patterns. His mind isn't shutting down at all, it's transforming. The next 8 hours became a journey into the unexplored territory of human dreams. They watched in wonder as Thomas's brain constructed elaborate scenarios, processing emotions and memories in ways that defied conventional neurological understanding. At one point, the ambassador's vital signs spiked dramatically. His eyes darted rapidly beneath closed lids as the consciousness probe revealed fragments of imagery. He was flying over crystalline spires that looked remarkably like Nyx-val's home world, but the crystals were singing in voices made of color. Incredible, Zarix breathed. His mind is combining his experiences with impossible concepts. But why? What evolutionary purpose could this serve? Perhaps, Nyx-val theorized, his form shimming thoughtfully. It's not about purpose, but potential. Look at how freely his consciousness moves between real and unreal, between possible and impossible. The night's observations changed everything they thought they knew about human consciousness. As dawn approached, they watched Thomas navigate through dozens of dream scenarios, conversations with long-dead relatives, adventures in physically impossible spaces, and problems solved through dream logic that somehow translated to real solutions. When Thomas finally awoke, he found both alien researchers staring at him with their respective approximations of awe. "Sleep well?" he asked with a knowing smile. Ambassador Zarix began carefully. "I believe we've been approaching human consciousness studies entirely wrong. We've been treating your sleep as a vulnerability, a design flaw in your species. But it's actually a feature, isn't it?" Thomas sat up, stretching. "How do you mean?" Nyx-val's crystalline form pulsed with excitement. "Your minds require this periodic death not because they are weak, but because they are so intensely alive that they need time to process, to explore, to push beyond the boundaries of reality itself. While other species evolved to maintain continuous, stable consciousness," Zarix continued, "humans evolved to dive into chaos every night and emerge stronger. It's not death at all, it's transformation." Thomas nodded. "We have a saying on Earth, to sleep, perchance to dream. It's from an old story about a man contemplating actual death. The idea that even in facing real death, we think about dreams, it says something about us, doesn't it?" The implications were staggering. Humanity's necessity for sleep, far from being a weakness, might actually explain their remarkable adaptability, their creativity, their ability to think beyond conventional boundaries. Every human spent years of their life practicing the art of experiencing the impossible. Over the following months, Zarix and Nyx-val's research sparked a revolution in how the galactic community viewed human consciousness. The fact that humans could routinely navigate between reality and unreality, between life and death, made them uniquely qualified for everything from first contact scenarios to theoretical physics. Some species remained disturbed by humanity's death sleep, but others became fascinated by it. Nyx-val even began experimenting with induced dream states in his own crystalline consciousness, though the results were mixed at best. One evening, as Thomas was preparing for another sleep study, Zarix found himself pondering a troubling thought. "Ambassador," he chittered softly, "does it ever frighten you, knowing that you must die again tonight?" Thomas considered this as he lay back on the monitoring bed. "You know what's funny? What scares me isn't the sleeping. It's the idea of never being able to sleep again, never dreaming again." He closed his eyes. Dreams remind us that reality isn't fixed, that anything is possible. And sometimes the dreams are better than being awake. As Thomas drifted into another night of temporary death and impossible dreams, Zarix made a note in his research log. Perhaps humanity's greatest strength isn't their technology, their adaptability, or even their resilience. Perhaps it's their ability to die a little each day and return with gifts from beyond the boundaries of possibility. In his crystal matrix beside him, Nyx-val hummed in agreement. Together, they settled in to watch another night of human consciousness dancing between reality and dreams, between life and death, weaving wonders from the impossible. And somewhere in the depth of sleep, Ambassador Thomas Chen smiled, his mind painting new realities with the casual grace of a species that had mastered the art of temporary death.